Captain Alex Reeves wiped the sweat from his forehead and squinted through Verdania's humid air at the wall of emerald vegetation that surrounded their temporary base camp. 3 weeks on this jungle world, and he still felt like they were being watched every moment of every day. Not by the local wildlife, though the 6-legged creatures that looked like a cross between monkeys and parrots certainly kept things interesting, but by something else entirely. "Alex, you're doing that thing again," Maria Santos called from where she was calibrating their atmospheric processors. The team's chief engineer had a talent for reading his moods, probably from the 2 years they'd served together on the Deep Space Survey vessel Meridian. The staring into the jungle like you expect it to start talking thing. "It's called maintaining perimeter awareness," Alex replied, though he knew she was right. He'd been on edge since their second day planetside, when he'd caught his first glimpse of movement that didn't match any of the local fauna patterns Dr. Kozlov had catalogued. Dr. Elena Kozlov looked up from her specimen analysis station, her graying hair escaping from its practical bun. "Captain, I've been monitoring the local ecosystem for signs of higher intelligence. Apart from some unusually complex symbiotic relationships between the flora, there's nothing to suggest." "There," Alex interrupted, pointing toward a cluster of purple-leaf trees about 50 meters from camp. Movement, roughly humanoid profile, approximately 1.7 meters tall. His 3 team members turned to look where he pointed. Jake Morrison, their communications specialist, raised his binoculars and swept the area methodically. "I'm not seeing anything, Cap," Jake said after a moment. "Just trees swaying in the breeze." "There's no breeze," Alex pointed out, and indeed the air hung still and heavy around them. Maria exchanged a look with Dr. Kozlov that Alex didn't miss. "Boss, when's the last time you got a full night's sleep? Because I'm pretty sure it wasn't since we landed on this overgrown greenhouse of a planet." Alex opened his mouth to argue, then caught sight of something pale moving behind the trees, gone in an instant but definitely there. "Motion sensors, Jake. What are they showing?" Jake consulted his handheld scanner, frowning at the display. "That's weird. I'm getting intermittent biosignatures, but they don't match anything in our database. Too large for local wildlife, but the readings keep cutting in and out like whatever it is has some kind of natural stealth capability." "Or like it's not really there," Maria suggested gently. "The sensors don't hallucinate, Maria," Alex said, trying to keep the irritation out of his voice. He knew his team was concerned about him, but he also knew what he'd seen. "Dr. Kozlov, any species on this planet capable of advanced camouflage?" "Several, actually," the biologist replied, warming to the topic. "The shimmercats can bend light around themselves for short periods, and there's a species of tree-dwelling cephalopod that can perfectly mimic bark patterns. But nothing humanoid, and certainly nothing with the cognitive capacity for the kind of complex observation behavior you're describing." Alex was about to respond when Jake's communication array began chirping with incoming signals. "That's odd," Jake muttered, adjusting his equipment. "I'm picking up what sounds like structured transmissions, but they're not coming from orbit." "Other survey teams?" Alex asked. "Negative. The frequency patterns are completely unknown, and they're originating from somewhere in the jungle. Almost sounds like language, but not like any language I've ever encountered." Dr. Kozlov's eyes lit up with scientific interest. "Indigenous communication. That would suggest a level of intelligence far beyond what we've observed in the local fauna." "Or beyond what we've been allowed to observe," Alex said, earning himself another concerned look from Maria. The next morning, Alex woke to find a cluster of fruit outside his shelter. Not the familiar orange spheres they'd been harvesting from nearby trees, but deep purple specimens with an almost crystalline surface that seemed to glow with internal light. He called the others over, and Dr. Kozlov's scanner went wild when she examined them. "These contain compound structures I've never seen before," she breathed, her scientific excitement overriding her skepticism about Alex's mysterious observer. The cellular matrix is incredibly complex, and there are trace elements here that aren't even on our periodic table. Someone left these for us, Maria asked, looking around the perimeter with new wariness. Or something, Jake added, but his tone suggested he was beginning to take Alex's observations more seriously. Over the following days, the gifts continued. Flowers woven into intricate patterns that hurt to look at directly, as if they existed in more than 3 dimensions. Crystalline formations that hummed with energy and made their equipment function more efficiently when placed nearby. Small tools carved from unknown materials that proved incredibly useful for camp maintenance. This is definitely intentional, Dr. Kozlov announced after analyzing their latest offering, a vine-like rope that was somehow stronger than their synthetic cables. Whatever intelligence is behind this has been studying our needs and capabilities. And it's been watching us long enough to understand our technology, Maria added, holding up a small device that appeared to be some kind of power cell. This thing doubled our battery efficiency overnight. Alex felt vindicated, but also increasingly frustrated. So why won't it make direct contact? Maybe it's afraid, Jake suggested. First contact scenarios are scary for both sides. Maybe it's trying to establish trust gradually. Or maybe, Dr. Kozlov said thoughtfully, it's bound by some kind of cultural restriction. Many Earth cultures had taboos about contact with outsiders. That afternoon, Alex decided to venture deeper into the jungle, following what appeared to be a faint trail marked by subtle disturbances in the undergrowth. His team protested, but he assured them he'd stay within communication range and return before dark. The trail led him through increasingly beautiful terrain, towering trees whose leaves filtered the sunlight into cathedral-like beams, streams that sang with musical tones as they flowed over resonant stones, flowers that seemed to respond to his presence with subtle changes in color and luminescence. And then he saw her. She stood in a clearing perhaps 30 meters away, partially concealed behind a tree whose bark seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury. Definitely humanoid, definitely female, and definitely not entirely human. Her features were elegant and refined, with high cheekbones and large eyes that seemed to capture and reflect the jungle's filtered light. Her ears extended into graceful points that reminded him of ancient Earth mythology, and her skin had a subtle luminescence that made her seem to glow from within. She was beautiful. She was obviously intelligent. And she was absolutely terrified. Their eyes met across the clearing, and Alex saw her entire body freeze with what looked like panic. He raised his hand slowly in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace, but she turned and vanished into the jungle so quickly he might have imagined the entire encounter. Except his heart was racing, and he could still hear the soft melody of her retreating footsteps on the forest floor. Alex returned to camp that evening with a new sense of purpose, and a detailed description that finally convinced his team he wasn't suffering from isolation psychosis. Dr. Kozlov immediately began cross-referencing his observations with xenobiological databases, while Jake worked on enhancing their sensor array to better track their mysterious visitor. Pointed ears, bioluminescent skin, definitely female, Dr. Kozlov muttered as she compiled her notes. The morphology suggests a humanoid species with possible evolutionary adaptations for low-light environments. The bioluminescence could be a form of communication, or simply a byproduct of efficient cellular energy production. What I want to know, Maria said, working on a new motion detection grid around their perimeter, is why she's so afraid of direct contact. The gifts suggest she wants to help us, but the avoidance behavior indicates genuine fear. Jake looked up from his communication console. Maybe we're the scary aliens in this scenario. Think about it, we drop out of the sky in a metal ship, set up camp with unknown technology, and start cataloging everything in sight. From her perspective, we might be the invasion force. Alex appreciated the different perspectives, but he couldn't shake the memory of those large, frightened eyes. It wasn't fear of us as a threat, he said. It was something else, something more personal. The next morning brought their most elaborate gift yet, a small shrine-like structure made from woven vines and crystalline formations, positioned at the exact center of their camp. It pulsed with soft light and seemed to improve the ambient air quality, making everyone feel more alert and energized. "This is getting sophisticated," Dr. Kozlov observed, running her scanner over the structure. "The molecular composition includes elements I can't identify, and the energy emissions are perfectly tuned to human physiological needs. It's like she built us a customized life support enhancement." "She's definitely studying us," Jake added, checking his equipment. "Look at this. Someone recalibrated our communication array last night. The modifications are incredibly subtle, but they've boosted our range by 30% and improved signal clarity." Maria discovered similar improvements throughout their equipment setup. "Our atmospheric processors are running at peak efficiency, the water purification system has been optimized, and someone even repaired that persistent glitch in the camp lighting grid." "She's taking care of us," Alex realized, "like we're her responsibility." Over the following week, Alex began setting up a systematic surveillance network, not to trap their benefactor, but to better understand her patterns and perhaps find a way to communicate safely. The recordings Jake's equipment captured were fascinating. Melodic vocalizations that definitely constituted language, movement patterns that suggested advanced knowledge of stealth and camouflage, and technological manipulations that implied scientific understanding far beyond their current human capabilities. "Listen to this," Jake said, playing back an audio recording from the previous night. The voice was unmistakably feminine, musical in quality, and carried emotional undertones that transcended species barriers. "It sounds sad," Maria observed, "like she's talking to herself about something that troubles her." Dr. Kozlov had been running linguistic analysis programs on the recordings. The phonetic patterns suggest a sophisticated language with mathematical precision in its structure. There are recurring elements that might be our names, or at least her words for us. "Can you work out any translation?" Alex asked. "Fragments, maybe. There's a sound cluster that appears whenever she's near your shelter, Alex. Could be a personal identifier. And there's another pattern that seems to correlate with distance. She uses it more frequently when she's farther from camp." Alex found himself thinking about her constantly, wondering about her culture, her people, her reasons for both helping and hiding. He began leaving gifts of his own, human technology that might interest her, art supplies, even simple drawings that depicted peaceful interactions between humans and hypothetical alien species. The gifts disappeared overnight, replaced by increasingly sophisticated offerings that showed she was not only understanding human technology but improving upon it. A handheld scanner that could analyze organic compounds with unprecedented accuracy. A power cell that seemed to draw energy directly from ambient electromagnetic fields. Tools made from materials that were somehow both organic and crystalline, more efficient than anything in their equipment inventory. "She's not just intelligent," Dr. Kozlov announced after a week of analysis. "She's scientifically brilliant. These modifications she's making to our equipment demonstrate understanding of quantum mechanics, biotechnology, and materials, science that's decades ahead of our own capabilities." "So why won't she just walk up and introduce herself?" Jake asked. "If she's that advanced, she must understand that we're trying to communicate." Alex had been wondering the same thing, especially after his latest sighting. He'd caught glimpses of her on 3 more occasions, always at a distance, always with that same expression of longing mixed with terror. She wanted contact, he was sure of it, but something was holding her back. The breakthrough came during their 4th week on Verdania, when a violent storm system moved through the region. Their weather sensors had given them plenty of warning, but the intensity exceeded their predictions. As lightning turned the jungle canopy into a strobing light show, and rain hammered their shelters, Alex noticed their mysterious guardian moving closer to camp than ever before. Through the driving rain, he could see her checking their equipment, adjusting settings, even reinforcing their shelters with additional materials she'd brought from the jungle. She was risking exposure to the dangerous storm conditions to ensure their safety. When a particularly violent gust of wind threatened to collapse Jake's communication array, Alex saw her abandon all pretense of concealment and rush to stabilize the structure. Without thinking, he grabbed his emergency poncho and ran out into the storm to help. She saw him coming and froze, her hands still supporting the communication mast. Rain plastered her luminous hair to her head, and her large eyes reflected lightning like mirrors. For a moment, they worked together in the storm, stabilizing the equipment that was vital to their mission. Then the immediate crisis passed, and she realized how close they were standing. The terror returned to her expression, and she backed away from him as if he were made of fire. "Wait!" Alex shouted over the storm. "Please. I just want to understand." She paused, looking back at him with an expression that broke his heart. She said something in her musical language, her voice barely audible over the wind and rain. Then she turned and fled into the storm, leaving Alex standing alone in the downpour with more questions than ever. When he returned to his shelter, he found a new gift waiting for him, a small crystalline pendant that seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. Attached to it was something he hadn't seen before, a crude but recognizable carved markers placed around the camp's perimeter, not gifts this time, but what appeared to be warning signs. Dr. Kozlov was the first to understand their significance. "These symbols," she said, examining one of the carved stones through her magnifying scope, "they're placed at specific points around areas I was planning to survey today. Look at this pattern. It's almost like a hazard map." Jake's environmental scanners confirmed her suspicion. Each marker corresponded to a location with elevated danger readings, unstable geological formations, toxic plant concentrations, or areas with dangerous wildlife activity. "She's not just watching us anymore," Maria observed, studying the placement pattern. "She's actively trying to keep us safe. This is like having our own personal safety inspector." Alex felt a complex mix of gratitude and frustration. Their guardian was clearly invested in their welfare, but the continued distance felt increasingly artificial. "She saved our lives last night, probably multiple times over with these warnings. Why won't she let us thank her?" Over the following days, the warning system became more sophisticated. New markers appeared whenever they planned to explore potentially hazardous areas, and existing markers would be rearranged to show safe paths through dangerous terrain. She was clearly monitoring their activities closely and anticipating their needs with remarkable accuracy. But Alex also noticed signs that their one-sided relationship was taking a toll on her. The audio recordings Jake captured showed increasing distress in her vocalizations, and her movements around the camp had become more agitated, less graceful. She seemed to be fighting some kind of internal battle. "She wants something from us," Dr. Kozlov said after analyzing the latest behavioral data. "Or maybe she wants to give us something but can't for some reason." The stress patterns in her voice suggest genuine psychological conflict. Alex made a decision that probably violated several first contact protocols. Instead of waiting for another chance encounter, he would actively seek her out and force a conversation, even if it meant cornering her. He was tired of watching her suffer from whatever was keeping them apart. He found his opportunity when another storm system approached, smaller than the previous one but still dangerous enough to require shelter. His tracking skills and understanding of her movement patterns led him to a cave system in the limestone cliffs, about a kilometer from camp, just as the first raindrops began to fall. She was already there, seeking shelter from the approaching weather, and when she saw him enter the cave, her reaction was everything he'd expected and worse. She pressed herself against the far wall of the cave, her luminous skin pulsing with rapid, panicked rhythms. Her vocalizations were rapid and distressed, clearly distressed pleading or explanation in her native language. "I'm not here to hurt you," Alex said, sitting down near the cave entrance to appear less threatening. "I just want to understand why you're so afraid." She continued speaking in her musical language, gesturing frantically between them and occasionally pointing deeper into the cave, as if indicating escape routes. Her fear was genuine and profound, but underneath it, Alex could see something else: longing, curiosity, and what might have been hope. He began trying to communicate using every method he could think of. Simple gestures, basic mathematical concepts drawn in the cave's sandy floor, even attempts to mimic some of the phonetic patterns Jake had recorded from her language. She watched his efforts with obvious intelligence and understanding, occasionally making sounds that might have been attempts at human words. Slowly, very slowly, her panic began to subside. She remained pressed against the far wall, but her vocalizations became more conversational, less distressed. When Alex offered her some of his emergency rations and water, she accepted them with careful, deliberate movements that kept maximum distance between them. "My name is Alex," he said, pointing to himself and repeating the words several times. She listened carefully, then made a sound that might have been her attempt at his name. When she pointed to herself, she produced a series of musical tones that sounded like Lyrian filtered through crystal chimes. "Lyrian," Alex repeated, and her reaction was immediate and intense. Her eyes widened, and she made rapid vocalizations that sounded excited, pleased, and terrified all at once. The storm outside intensified, trapping them together in the cave. Alex used the time to continue their halting conversation, gradually building a basic vocabulary of shared words and concepts. Lyrian proved to be remarkably quick at picking up human language, and within hours, she was stringing together broken but comprehensible sentences. "Alex Good Human," she managed, her accent turning his name into something that sounded like music. "Lyrian, watches Alex keep safe, must not." She stopped, her expression becoming anguished as she struggled with words or concepts she couldn't express in his language. "Must not what?" Alex asked gently. She gestured between them, then made a motion like building a wall with her hands. "Cannot touch, cannot, come close, dangerous, very dangerous." "Dangerous how? I won't hurt you, and you clearly don't want to hurt me." Lyrian's luminous skin pulsed with rapid, anxious patterns. She spoke rapidly in her own language, then stopped and tried again in broken English. "Ancient, prophecy. Old words from before time. First human touch." She stopped, her eyes wide with what looked like terror. "First human touch what?" Alex pressed. She looked directly at him for the first time since he'd entered the cave, her large eyes reflecting the stormlight from outside. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "First human Lyrian touches, becomes mate bond, forever bond, cannot break, cannot choose, cannot." She gestured helplessly, tears beginning to flow down her luminous cheeks. "Prophecy says first human touch changes everything, forever." Alex felt his world shift on its axis. The fear, the distance, the gifts, the protective behavior, it all suddenly made sense, and it terrified him. "A bonding prophecy," he breathed, understanding flooding through him. "That's why you're afraid, you think if you touch me." "Not think," Lyrian corrected, her English improving with emotional urgency. "No, prophecy never wrong, Lyrian people. We have this knowing for many generations. When humans come to Verdania, first touch will make life bond, permanent, forever." She pressed herself further against the cave wall, if such a thing were possible. Lyrian watches Alex, wants to help, wants to know human thoughts, human ways. But touch means Alex becomes Lyrian's mate whether Alex chooses or not. Prophecy takes choice away. The implications hit Alex like a physical blow. She had been protecting not just his life, but his free will, staying close enough to care for him while far enough away to preserve his autonomy. And she was clearly torturing herself with the conflict between her desires and her ethical constraints. Outside, the storm raged on, trapping them together in a space that suddenly felt both too small and impossibly vast. The storm continued to rage outside their cave shelter, but inside, a different kind of tempest was building. Alex sat in stunned silence, processing the revelation that had just turned his understanding of their situation completely upside down. Lyrian remained pressed against the far wall, her luminous skin pulsing with patterns that seemed to reflect her emotional turmoil. "A life bond," Alex finally said, testing the words. "Permanent and irreversible." "Yes," Lyrian whispered, her English becoming more fluid as emotional intensity drove her linguistic development. "Not just partnership, true bond. Minds connect, hearts beat together, souls become. Become one soul in two bodies. Beautiful thing for Lyrian people, but only when both choose freely." Alex found himself thinking about everything he'd observed. Her careful distance, her obvious longing, her dedication to his safety despite never being able to openly communicate. "That's why you've been torturing yourself. You want contact, but you can't risk taking away my choice." Lyrian nodded, tears continuing to flow down her glowing cheeks. "Prophecy very specific. Says when humans come to Verdania, first human touched by Solari becomes eternal mate. No choice, no escape, no going back to before. Alex has mission, has life among stars, has own people. Lyrian cannot steal that with selfish touch." "But you've been watching me for weeks," Alex said, understanding dawning. "Getting to know me, caring about me, while knowing you could never." "Lyrian thinks maybe prophecy wrong," she admitted, her voice breaking. "Maybe just old story, not true thing. But what if prophecy right? What if one touch changes Alex's whole life without asking Alex's permission? Lyrian cannot risk." Alex studied her across the cave's dim interior. This remarkable woman who had been protecting not just his life but his autonomy, even while clearly caring for him deeply. The ethical complexity of her position struck him with admiration and heartbreak in equal measure. "Tell me about your people," he said gently. "Help me understand what this bond means to the Solari." Lyrian's expression shifted to something that might have been relief at being able to share her burden. "Solari are connection people. We feel others' emotions, share thoughts with family, work together like one organism with many parts. Life bond is strongest connection possible. When two Solari bond, they become truly one being with shared experiences, shared feelings, shared life force." "That sounds beautiful," Alex said and meant it. "Is beautiful when both choose," Lyrian agreed. "But prophecy says human Solari bond different, stronger. Human mind is more closed than Solari mind, so bond must break through barriers. Process changes both people permanently. Solari becomes more individual, more separate from collective. Human becomes more connected, more empathic. Both changed forever." Alex felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cave's temperature. "Changed how?" "Lyrian does not know exactly. Prophecy old, from time before humans came to our star systems. But wise ones say bonded human would feel Solari emotions as own emotions, see through Solari eyes, know Solari thoughts. And Solari would understand human independence, human decision-making, human, how do you say, self-containedness. We'd become something new," Alex realized. "Not fully human, not fully Solari." "Yes, and prophecy says process happens with first touch, whether people want or not. No control, no choice, just chain." Lyrian's skin pulsed with anguished patterns. Lyrian dreams of touching Alex, of sharing thoughts and feelings, of truly knowing Alex's mind. But dreams are selfish. Alex did not come to Verdania to become something different. Alex found himself staring at this extraordinary woman who had been carrying such an impossible burden. She had fallen in love with him. He could see it clearly now, but had denied herself any possibility of expression because she refused to risk his autonomy. It was perhaps the most selfless thing he'd ever encountered. "What if," he said carefully, "someone chose the bond willingly? What if it wasn't forced by prophecy but offered as a free choice?" Lyrian's eyes went wide with shock and something that might have been hope. Alex cannot mean. I'm not saying I'm deciding anything right now, Alex said quickly, seeing her agitation increase. I'm just trying to understand all the possibilities. You've been protecting my choice while denying your own feelings. Maybe there's another way to look at this. Choice changes everything, Lyrian whispered. If human chooses bond freely, then prophecy becomes gift instead of curse. But Alex has mission, has team, has responsibilities to human people. I also have feelings, Alex said quietly. 3 weeks of watching you care for us from the shadows, seeing your intelligence, your compassion, your ethical strength. I've been trying to make contact not just as a scientist, but because I was drawn to you personally. Lyrian's bioluminescence intensified, her skin glowing brighter as her emotions spiked. Alex feels connection to Lyrian. I do, Alex admitted, which makes this situation even more complex. Because now I have to wonder, are my feelings genuine, or just a response to the prophetic bond starting to form? Bond does not begin until touch, Lyrian said urgently. What Alex feels now is true Alex feeling, not prophecy magic. Lyrian has been careful, so careful, never to risk even smallest contact. The storm outside was beginning to abate, and Alex could hear the distant sound of his team's voices calling his name through the rain. Soon they would be found and this conversation would have to end. The moment of decision was approaching whether he was ready or not. Lyrian, he said, standing up but maintaining careful distance, I need you to know something. These weeks of watching you struggle with this burden, seeing your selflessness and your pain, have shown me something extraordinary. You're remarkable, not just as an alien species, but as a person. And the choice you've given me, the autonomy you've preserved even at the cost of your own happiness, means more to me than you could possibly understand. Alex, she breathed, hope and terror warring in her expression. I'm not making any decisions in a cave during a storm, Alex continued. This is too important for that, but I want you to know that your feelings aren't one-sided and your sacrifice hasn't gone unnoticed. When I'm ready to make a choice, whatever that choice might be, it will be made with full knowledge and complete free will, the gift you've given me. The voices outside were getting closer, and Alex could see the flicker of flashlights through the cave entrance. My team is coming. Will you meet with me again, properly this time, with translation equipment and time to really talk about this? Lyrian nodded, tears and hope mixing in her luminous eyes. Yes, Lyrian will meet Alex again. We'll explain more about prophecy, about Solari ways, about what bond truly means. Alex deserves all knowledge before choosing. As the first members of his search party appeared at the cave entrance, Alex looked one last time at the remarkable woman who had been watching over him, protecting him from a destiny that might also be the greatest opportunity of his life. Lyrian, he said softly, whatever I choose, I want you to know that meeting you has already changed me. Not through prophecy or magic, but through the simple recognition of an extraordinary person.